At a number 10 spot, we have the Yeti. In a recent discovery that has sparked a flurry of excitement among Twitter users, the footprints of a Yeti were found by Indian Army mountaineers near the Makulu base camp in Nepal. The footprints, which measured a staggering 32 inches, were photographed and then posted on Twitter, prompting people to speculate whether the expedition team was actually serious about their findings or they're conducting a trolling experiment on their followers. For those unfamiliar with the Yeti, it is the mysterious cousin of the Bigfoot, both part of the same extremely elusive family. The legend of hairy, oversized hominids lurking at the outer reaches of civilization has been around for centuries and is part of the folklore of several cultures. But could these footprints really be from the Yeti? And if Yetis are real, how could they have existed for so long without one clear HD photo? According to Daniel C. Taylor, author of Yeti, The Ecology of a Mystery, the footprints were most likely created by a bear and its cub, rather than a dinosaur-sized or mythical half-human creature. While the footprints in the photos appeared to lead into bushes, Mr. Taylor noted that he would expect to find a clear set of prints where the trail leads to. But this doesn't mean there's no Yeti. Mr. Taylor even listed 3 types of Yetis in his book. The first Yeti is the legend, much like Santa Claus. The second Yeti is the Yeti that lives inside of people, fueled by their need to be closer to nature. And the third and final Yeti is the one that actually made the footprints, the mama and her cub. At our number 9 spot, we have the Beer Hospital. Beer Hospital in Nepal has been providing free medical services to the abandoned, helpless, and poor patients. However, the hospital has been failing to ensure the safety and comfort of these patients. Patients like Bikash Thurisha, who is diagnosed with tuberculosis, and June Maya Bajul, who is diagnosed with breast infection, has been receiving free medical service at this hospital, but they have not been provided with proper rooms and beds. The hospital has allocated 26 beds for abandoned patients in the emergency ward, which is not sufficient for the number of patients being brought in daily by the police. Due to the lack of beds and human resources, the quality of treatment has been deteriorating rapidly, resulting in more than 50% of such patients succumbing to their diseases. And you know what that means? Some supernatural activity as well. On top of that, there are rumors that a notorious satanic cult operates inside of the hospital, in which they conduct dark rituals and human sacrifices in the basement. Visitors to the property constantly report different sorts of paranormal activity, and they mention apparitions, disembodied voices, and strange mists that seem to appear from nowhere. Number 8, Sundarjal Bang. Also considered the river that needs human sacrifice, this waterfall is probably not the best place to visit in Nepal. Sundarjal, a region located near the bustling city of Kathmandu, is known for its large river that provides drinking water to the city's inhabitants. However, despite its importance, the locals believe that the river is haunted and they refuse to go anywhere near it. The river flows through a lush jungle which is rumored to be home to many tormented spirits. According to the legend, the river has a thirst for human lives and takes the lives of those who come near it. Every year there are incidents where tourists and locals fall into the water and completely vanish. Some people believe that the spirits of those who died in the river still roam along the riversides. However, it's unclear whether these stories are true or they're just simply a developed folklore and people are just tripping over here. At our number 7 spot, we have Devghat. Devghat is a religious Hindu site located in Chitwan, also known as Aryaghat. However, a chilling incident on July 12, 2009 shook the town when the skull of a female was recovered from the region. And it was just the beginning, as the police began to recover numerous bones and skulls from the area after that. The situation got even stranger when locals started witnessing 4 old women visiting the spot every night to perform a dance ritual. The women would set fire to themselves at midnight while performing, making it an eerie sight to behold. However, the discovery of human bones in this area is not new to locals, as Devghat is known as the land of cremation, and it is also considered a ceremonial site for black magic believers. In the past, skulls of various people were also reportedly removed from the spots, and nevertheless, the identity of these 4 old women still remains a mystery. Locals claim to see these 4 to 5 women apparitions approaching the river by night, and they appear to be dancing, but they're floating above the ground. But the most crazy thing about this is that they do this dance while completely engulfed in flames. Number 6, the Bokshi. Nepal legend says that witchcraft is widely practiced in remote areas of Nepal, except at this time, their witch description was far from accurate. Basically, any woman who had something bad to say or raised her voice at the patriarchy would be considered a witch or a bokshi. The problem with the term bokshi is that it has become so extreme that women are being murdered in the name of this specific ritual and are forced to become a ghost, where they will be lost and seen roaming around the streets looking for answers. Even to this day, people are getting accused of being witches. Am I being confused, or am I still living in the Salem witch trials still? Because why are people still believing in this stuff? In the Humphrey list, we have the Ranabon. Many people know Ranabon for their breathtaking views and incredible sceneries, but inside of this nature escape is hidden something very dark. Within the jungle of Ranabon village, there is a gigantic tree looking straight out of a cartoon with its widespread and exposing roots. Except, take away the beauty from this tree and you might understand why locals avoid this specific tree altogether. Warning, the story is pretty explicit. Legend goes that several years ago, a man assaulted and murdered a girl right underneath this tree, and after some research, this turned out to be a true story and has a lot more disturbing details I can't even mention. However, after her death, people in the area started to hear noticeable crying coming from under the tree, but when they went to investigate, nothing was there. And to make this even more spookier, just days after, the man who murdered the girl was executed by hanging on the very same tree. So best believe there's more than one ghost sitting under this tree, and you should just probably avoid sitting here altogether. Number 4, Dao Hill. Located in northeastern region of Nepal, lies a forest that will make you feel scared and uncomfortable the entire hike. The forest known as Dao Hill is considered one of the most haunted spots in Nepal, and for good reason. Visitors to the forest have reported feeling a sense of being watched, almost as if eyes are following their every move. Some even claim to have catch glimpses of strange movements in their periphery, only to turn and find nothing there. However, the occurrences don't stop there. There has been reports of a screaming woman in the woods, and several visitors have claimed to see red eyes peeking at them from the trees above. But perhaps the most famous ghost sighting in Dao Hill is that of a headless boy who has been seen wandering through the forest and down a street known as Death Road. What a lovely name. Even the high school situated beside the woods is believed to be haunted as well. Many visitors claim to hear loud whispers coming from inside the lockers and footsteps during the closed months. So best believe not only the woods are haunted, but this whole entire area. Number 3, the ghost of Mount Everest. Being the tallest mountain in the entire world, people are bound to come in the thousands to conquer the challenge. However, with a fatality rate at 14%, many climbers have not been able to finish their trip, and their bodies still lay on this mountain due to a lot of safety issues in recovering them. So best believe after seeing these bodies and hearing the horrific stories, some ghost stories in Everest are bound to pop up. On your journey to the top, chances are you'll come across the 3,000 corpses that lie on the mountain to this day. One is a man only known as Green Boots, but his real name was Swang Paljor. Many climbers claim to see the apparition of a climber with green boots, encouraging them to push through it. Being at such an extreme height, many mountaineers suffer from altitude sickness and causes many to see vivid hallucinations, so this really isn't a surprise. But it's not hard to believe that there may be some ghosts lurking on this mountain still to this day. Number 2, the Royal Palace of Nepal. On June 1st, 2001, one of the worst royal massacres occurred at the Royal Palace in Nepal, including King Birendra and Queen Aishwarya. The culprit turned out to be the son and crown prince Dipendra, who was said to have opened fire on the palace grounds when a party was happening. He shot his own dad, mother, and his own siblings. He was appointed king, but only for a temporary time, as he was in a coma since the attack due to shooting himself. Shortly after this massacre, locals around the palace began to report sounds of screaming, shouting, and the most notorious sound that they could document was the sound of gunshots. They claimed that it was the gunshots from the massacre, and its haunting sounds are still trapped in this palace to this day. Number 1, the water tank of Dapashi. Located in Dapashi, Basundara, lies this innocently looking underground tank to store water around the community. Although this is necessary for any community and serves a benefit, many locals are actually too afraid to go anywhere near it. Of course, this doesn't mean they couldn't get water due to their fear. Instead, they would probably ask someone else to get it. But what could stop people from getting a basic necessity like water? Well, it all started with the sounds of crying, shouting, and other strange noises coming from inside of the tank. And it was said the sounds grew even louder by the nighttime. This is also the time where locals claim that they also see a spirit of a decomposing man standing nearby the tank. The legend says that a group of robbers mugged a man near the water tank, and instead of a quick theft, one of the men accidentally killed the man, or so they thought. Then they decided to put the man's body in this tank, but once they locked it, they could hear the man alive struggling for his life. Soon after, the man would pass and the robbers would eventually get caught. But just imagine that your drinking water used to have a decomposing body inside of it. Doesn't this remind anyone of Cecil Hotel? Anyone? Number 10, the Red Lady of Huntingdon College. The Red Lady of Huntingdon College is a legendary ghost that is sent to haunt the former Pratt Hall dormitory at the Huntingdon College in Montgomery, Alabama. According to Wyndham and historian Daniel Barefoot, there have actually been two ghosts referred to as the Red Lady. The first Red Lady was described as a woman in a scarlet dress and parasol, who walked wordlessly in the halls of the women's dormitory, bathed in a red glow, due to her father's will specifying she attends her mother's alma mater. Martha was shy and unhappy and struggled to make friends at the college, leading her to become increasingly aloof and bitter. Despite the efforts of the dormitory president to befriend her, Martha remained isolated, often wandering into the rooms of other students and casting a chill upon groups. Her behavior grew increasingly strange as she would visit dormitories during the darkest hours of the night, never speaking but only staring into space as if in a trance. One evening after Martha had not been seen for the day, her former roommate found her dead in her room. It is believed that she had taken her own life, but rumors circulated that her ghost continued to haunt Pratt Hall. Students reported seeing her walking up and down the halls, opening and closing doors, and staring into space. The Red Lady's ghostly encounters continued for many years, and now she's become a well-known legend at the college and the entire state. Number 9. Deceased Children's Playground. The Deceased Children's Playground in Huntsville, Alabama is a pretty intimidating name for a seemingly innocent-looking playground. According to local lore, many children who died during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic in Huntsville were buried in Maple Hill Cemetery, which adjoins the playground. Some people believe that the spirits of these children come out to play in the playground after dark, which has led many to report of unexplained movements and ghostly sightings in the area. For those who don't know, the Spanish flu pandemic was a global disaster, killing an estimated 50 million people worldwide, including many in Huntsville, where the deceased arrived on September 25, 1918. Within the 10 days, it had spread to the general population, and hospitals were filled with patients, leading to doctors working long shifts to try to ease their suffering. As a result, many families were quarantined in their homes, and to prevent the spread of the disease, parents told children to keep the windows closed. This resulted in the rhyme, "I had a bird, its name was Enza, I opened the window and influenza." Although there is no official count of the number of children who passed away in Huntsville during the pandemic or how many people were buried in Maple Hill, it is likely that hundreds perished, leading to this park being extremely haunted. Number 8. Hell's Gate Bridge. Hell's Gate Bridge in Oxford, Alabama is considered to be the most haunted bridge in the state. The bridge's name was inspired by the legend of a young couple whose car drove off the bridge and into the waters below in the 1950s. According to the legend, if you stop on the bridge and turn off your lights, a member of the couple will enter your car and leave a wet spot on the seats. This eerie story is why the bridge is considered to be very haunted. But it is not just a couple that haunts Hell's Gates Bridge. It is also said that if you stop on the bridge and look over your shoulder, the road behind you will resemble the fiery gates of hell. This frightening tale has led many visitors to the bridge seeking to experience the supernatural for themselves. Although the Oxford Paranormal Society conducted an investigation in 2007 and found no evidence of paranormal activity, there are still many locals who claim to have had a ghostly encounter at this bridge. Despite the bridge's reputation, local officials have closed it off to any sort of vehicles due to safety concerns, but visitors are able to still walk across it if they dare. While the old bridge is falling apart, it is an unforgettable experience to walk on it, even in the daylight. Whether or not the stories behind the haunted bridge in Alabama are true, the legend of Hell's Gate Bridge continues to live on and attract visitors from far and wide. If you are brave enough to walk across this historic bridge, you will be forever changed. Number 7. The Sloss Furnaces. Birmingham, Alabama was founded in 1871 with the aim of becoming a major center for America's industrial age, taking advantage of its rich deposits of iron ore, coal, and limestone. The city was nicknamed the Magic City, and one of its key attractions was the Sloss Furnaces, built by James Wither Sloss in 1881. The furnaces were dangerous and men worked 12-hour days facing danger at every single turn. Many workers died from accidents, including falling into molten steel or suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. There's even a story of a worker who was dragged into gears during his lunch break. The furnaces were known for paranormal activity as well, with reports of screams, apparitions, and the presence of slag, which is a cruel foreman. On September 9, 1887, worker Richard Jowers fell into molten steel and was incinerated. It is rumored that his bones were removed, but his remains were lost completely. Today, Sloss Furnaces is a national landmark and still echoes with the sounds of his perilous past. It is possible that the workers who lost their lives at these furnaces still haunt the grounds, reminding the city of their sacrifice. Number 6. The Downey Booger. The legend of the Downey Booger dates back to the late 1800s in Winston County, Alabama. Known for its rugged men, whiskey, and Saturday night dances, Winston County was also infamous for the strange creature that had been sighted by John and Joe Downey while they were returning home from a dance. The creature, which had both human and animal-like features, had frightened the cousins' horses and caused them to run in the opposite direction. Later, a family returning from a church service and Jim Jackson, who was transporting moonshine to a mining town, also reported encounters with this creature. Jim Jackson fired twice at this creature, causing it to scream like a woman and limp on 3 feet. A posse formed to find this creature, but all they found were traces of blood leading from the sand bed to a distant cliff. The true identity of this creature still remains a mystery to this day, and its strange appearance and haunting screams continues to be retold among the residents of Winston County. In the hump of our list, we have the Alabama White Thing. The mystery of the Alabama White Thing has been the subject of much speculation and storytelling for nearly a century. Originating in the Triangle region between Morgan, Etowah, and Jefferson counties, this creature is described as being over 7 feet tall and covered in long white hair. It is known for its lightning fast speed and eerie screech that sounds like a woman's scream or a panther's roar. There has been numerous sightings of the White Thing in Happy Hollow, Walnut Grove, and Moody's Chapel. Some people believe it could be an albino Bigfoot or a large albino bear. Peter J. Gossett, a historian of Winston County, heard the story of the White Thing from his aunt, Fenata Martin Smith. She told him of a man named George Norris who had a close encounter with the creature in Enon Graveyard. According to Smith, Norris described the White Thing as having the appearance of a lion with a bushy, slick tail. He said it was looking at him when he woke up one morning to find it laying next to him, but it didn't seem to pose a threat. Number 4, the Drish House. The Drish House in Tuscaloosa, Alabama has a rich history that dates back to 1837. Built by Dr. John R. Drish, a physician and prominent home builder in the area, the 2-story Greek Revival style home was once part of a 450-acre plantation. Drish employed slave artisans for his plasterwork projects, and his success in the field led him to marrying a wealthy widow named Sarah Owen McKinney. But the Drish House is not just known for its rich history, but also for its notorious reputation as being one of the most haunted sites in Tuscaloosa. The spirits of the original occupants are said to still haunt the house, including Dr. Drish, Sarah Drish, and Catherine, which is the daughter of the Drish family. In 1969, author Catherine Tucker Wyndham published a book about 13 ghost stories in Alabama. And the second chapter, called Death Lights in the Tower, tells the story of a mysterious phantom fire that occurred on the Drish House Tower after the passing of Sarah Drish. Number 3, the Bear Creek Swamp. Bear Creek Swamp, located in Autauga County between Prattville and Autaugaville, has been a source of ghost stories for many years. A woman who is said to be searching for her missing child is said to roam the swamp at all hours, with some claiming that the baby drowned there and others saying that the children was kidnapped by indigenous people. According to the legend, if someone visits the swamp at midnight and chants, "I have your baby," 3 times, the woman will appear, kind of like Bloody Mary. Many people have reported sightings of apparitions that resemble indigenous people and early settlers, as well as phantom lights and cackling laughter in the area. The legend of Bear Creek Swamp becomes more intriguing in November 2014 when the Autauga County Sheriff's Office recovered 21 dolls that had been mysteriously stuck into the marshland. Although the Sheriff's Office never determined who placed the dolls there, officials just believed it to be a Halloween prank. But was it really? Number 2, the Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment. This experiment was designed to observe the effects of syphilis when untreated. It was conducted in 1932 by the U.S. Public Health Service with 600 African Americans recruited from Alabama. The men consisted of 399 with latent syphilis and 201 as a control group with no syphilis. They agreed to the study because they were promised free healthcare, which they never got, and were originally told that they were being treated for bad blood. These men were given only placebos such as aspirin and mineral supplements, rather than being treated with penicillin, which was the recommended treatment at the time. Many participants of the study died, went blind, or got driven to insanity, while others suffered other severe health complications due to the untreated syphilis. The story ended up arising back in 1972, and by that time, 28 more participants perished. 100 had passed away from related issues, 40 spouses were diagnosed with it, and the disease got even passed down to 19 of their children. Despite an apology from President Clinton in 1997, the damages had already been done. Number 1, Hugging Molly. The small town of Abbeville in Alabama is known for many things, but one of its most famous legends is that of Hugging Molly. According to the local folklore, Hugging Molly is a tall figure dressed in all black, including a wide-brimmed hat, who wanders the street of Abbeville at night looking for children to hug. Although the origin of the legend is unclear, there are several different theories as to who or what Hugging Molly really is. One theory is that Hugging Molly was a woman who lost her own child and as a result goes after the local children to make up for it. Another theory suggests that Hugging Molly was a professor at the Alabama Agricultural School and her intention was to keep the students safe by getting them off the streets at night. There's also others who believe that Hugging Molly was murdered in cold blood on the very streets she now haunts and is trying to fulfill something. Despite the frightening appearance of this haunting Molly, there has never been any reports of harm caused by her. In fact, she's almost a part of the community and town history, with local residents even being named after her. With so many different interpretations, it is really difficult to determine the truth behind the story of her. But one thing is for sure, on a cold, dark, and rainy night, Hugging Molly still roams the street of Aveville, seeking out children to hug. At our number 10 spot, we have the Phantom of the Opera. The Phantom of the Opera is a well-known legend that is closely linked to the history of the Opera Garnier in Paris. This legend originated from a fire that occurred in the Salle Pelletier, the predecessor of the Opera Garnier, in 1873. A pianist named Ernest was horribly disfigured in the fire and lost his companion as a result. Overcome with grief, he chose to isolate himself from the world and even took refuge in the basement of this place, which was still under construction at the time. Ernest spent the remainder of his life in the shadows of this building and only ate fish from the underground lake of the opera. His sorrowful cries could be heard in the background of performances, as many guests would report. After his disappearance, strange events started to occur in the Opera Garnier. For example, a machinist was found hanged, but when they did investigation, there was no rope to be found. And also, a chandelier fell during one performance, killing a spectator seated in the seat number 13. All these mysterious occurrences were attributed to the Phantom of the Opera, who is believed to still haunt the halls of the famous theater. These mysteries have captured the imaginations of many writers, including Gaston Leroux. He wrote the novel The Phantom of the Opera in 1910, which was a worldwide success and largely based on this legend. Even today, the legend continues to live on as Lodge number 5 in Opera Garnier is permanently rented by a mysterious stranger. This lodge is strategically located within the theater, allowing its occupant to see the performances but remain unseen. At our number 9 spot, we have the Beast of Gévaudan. The Beast of Gévaudan remains one of the most intriguing and mysterious legends in French history. The terror caused by this man-eating beast or beast lasted for 3 years, from 1764 all the way to 1767. The attacks took place in the Margeride Mountains of south central France and spanned over an area of 90 by 80 kilometers. Eyewitnesses reported that the beast was formidable with sharp teeth and an immense tail. The descriptions of the animal also varied widely, with some saying it was a striped hyena, while others claimed it was like a large wolf, dog, or even a wolf-dog hybrid. Regardless of its actual appearance, the Beast of Gévaudan was known for its brutal methods of attack, which often involved tearing out the throats of its victims. The Kingdom of France took threat to this beast very seriously and even devoted a significant amount of manpower and wealth to hunting this animal down. The resources of several nobles, soldiers, and royal huntsmen, and even civilians were used in the pursuit of this beast. But despite their efforts, the attacks persisted and the number of victims continued to rise. The exact number of victims is not known, but estimates suggest that the beast killed and injured hundreds of people. Although the beast was reported killed several times, the attacks did not stop until 1767. To this day, the identity of the Beast of Gévaudan remains a mystery, and its legends continue to captivate people's imaginations and if there was really a man-eating beast in France during this time. At our number 8 spot, we have the father of cinematography. Louis Le Prince is a name that should ring a bell to all those into cinema, as he is widely regarded as the true father of cinematography. However, despite his monumental contribution to the world of motion pictures, his name is often overshadowed by figures like Thomas Edison and the Lumiere brothers. The reason for this is that Le Prince disappeared before he could showcase his groundbreaking invention to the world. In 1888, Le Prince shot the first film in history in Leeds, England. However, instead of rushing to show the world what he created, he chose to be patient and refine his invention. After 2 years of careful tweaking, he was finally ready to present his work to the public. Then in September 1890, he boarded a train to Paris with all the materials and patents he needed for the showcase. But unfortunately, he never made it to the French capital. His friends were waiting in Paris to pick him up, but they found no trace of him. This mystery sparked many rumors and theories about what could have happened to Le Prince. Some people said that his brother Albert killed him over their inheritance, while others believed that he drowned himself or just decided to fled to start a new life. But the most tantalizing theory was that Thomas Edison himself was behind Le Prince's disappearance, as he wanted to ensure his monopoly over the invention of cinema. Despite the many theories surrounding his disappearance, one thing is for certain: Louis Le Prince left a lasting impact on the world of motion pictures and will forever be known, at least for me, as a visionary inventor. All the way at our number 7 spot, we have the murdered monks. The Abbaye de Mortemer is a 12th century monastery located in Normandy, France, and it is considered by many to be one of the most haunted places in the country as well. The story of Mortemer Abbey begins with the Cistercian monks who built the monastery on marshy land that was referred to as the Dead Pond, a name that would eventually become the moniker for the abbey itself. Despite the monastery's size and grandeur, it was often plagued by financial difficulties, which ultimately led to its downfall. By the time of the French Revolution, the abbey was in a state of disrepair, but a small community of monks still lived within its walls. However, their presence was not enough to save them from the wrath of the revolutionaries, who decided to storm the abbey in 1790, killing 4 monks who lived there and leaving a scene of blood and chaos behind. Since then, the abbey has been the site of numerous ghostly sightings, with rumors of ghostly monks haunting the ruins. Fortunately, there has even been accounts of a benevolent ghost there, dressed in the robes of a monk, appearing during World War II and even saving an English paratrooper from an enemy attack. And if you decide to visit, there's a higher chance you'll probably encounter one of the more angered spirits of the 4 murdered monks, but let's just hope you encounter this one. Number 6, the Mont Saint-Michel. The Mont Saint-Michel, a settlement located on the border of Brittany and Normandy, is a place of both beauty and terror. This majestic fortress built on an island is surrounded by the sea, which makes it a popular tourist destination, but this fairy tale-like location still has a dark and haunting side to it. According to the legend, the island was discovered when Saint Albert received a dream from Archangel Michael, directing him to build a monastery there. Despite initially disregarding the vision, the Archangel burned a hole in the bishop's head to reinforce the message, and the monastery was built. The island has been a place of worship and pilgrimage for centuries and has been the subject of many myths and ghost stories over the years as well. The island is known for their Battle of Mont Saint-Michel, one of the bloodiest days in French history. It is said that the wails of English soldiers who lost their lives during the war can still be heard on calm days with low tides. Many people believe that the souls of these soldiers are unable to rest and continue to haunt the island, never moving to the afterlife. Before the French Revolution, the island was inhabited by monks and other pious people who decided to bury their dead in the walls of the church. When the revolution reached Mont Saint-Michel, the monks were forced to abandon the island, and the abbey was then turned into a prison. Some say that the ghosts of the dead monks who were disturbed by the desecration of their once sacred location still roam the island as well. And the hump of our list, we have the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme. As you already know, nursery rhymes' origins aren't as charming as their true story. One of these is the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme. It has 2 popular interpretations. One is tied to the French Revolution, and the other one is tied to King Charles I of England. In the first interpretation, Jack represents King Louis XVI of France, and Jill represents Queen Mary Antoinette. The rhyme tells the story of their execution during the Reign of Terror in 1793. But in the second interpretation, the rhyme revolves around King Charles I's attempt to increase taxes on liquid measures. The standard volume of Jack was reduced and the tax remained the same. A gill, which was twice the volume of a Jack, was also reduced as a result. The volume mark on the standard Jack measure was indicated with a crown, and the reduction of the volume caused the crown mark to fall, leading to the lyrics, Jack fell down and broke his crown.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after.
Number 4, the worst barber ever. Travel back in time to medieval Paris and the Ile de la Cite, when a barber was known to frequently receive foreign students who were housed by neighboring cantons. Unfortunately, some of these young students would then vanish without a trace. In those days of widespread poverty and frequent attacks, it was believed that these students were victims of a violent crime, and with no family left in Paris to inquire about their disappearance, their fate was left to speculation. However, one day, an unusual incident changed the course of events. A dog was barking loudly in front of a barber's door for several days, and its master, a German student, had not returned from his appointment. The police were then called in to investigate and made a shocking discovery. The barber was cutting the throats of his young clients, then disposing of their bodies through a trap door in the cellar of the pastry chef next door. It was said that the pastry chef used the bodies to make some of the best pies in all of Paris. The barber and pastry chef paid the price for their crimes, and they were burned alive in a public square. Their houses were razed to the ground, and today the former site of the bakery is used as a garage for the Paris police. Number 3, the haunted lighthouse at Tevennec. Despite its picturesque location on the coast, the Tevennec lighthouse was notorious for the tales of madness and death that surrounded the 23 lighthouse operators who lived and worked there before it was automated in 1910. The area around the lighthouse has a rich maritime history and was known for their frequent shipwrecks that occurred there, including the crash of the French ship Sedusant during the Napoleonic Wars. which led to the death of hundreds of sailors. According to local legends, the area is also haunted by the spirits of the Celtic seafarers and warriors, who has been said to haunt the lighthouse since its inception. The tales of madness that befell the lighthouse operators are particularly eerie. The first operator, Henry Guzenik, was reportedly driven to madness by ghostly voices that spoke to him in the Breton language and told him to leave the lighthouse every single day. One of these successors are said to have had similar experiences, leading the French government to make Tevennec a two-man lighthouse and even recruited married couples to work there. However, few couples were willing to live and work at this lighthouse, for obvious reasons, and those that did suffered untimely and tragic deaths, including a family with 3 children and a cow.
Well, it's not relevant, is it?
The story surrounding the Tevennec Lighthouse is filled with the tales of failed exorcisms, crucifixes installed to ward off evil spirits, and even a violent storm that arrived just as one of the operators were giving birth inside of the lighthouse. So definitely one of the places in France that you don't want to visit. Number 2, the encounter of Marius de Wilde. The French commune of Quaraubo made headlines in September 10, 1954, when a local railway worker named Marius de Wilde claimed to have been visited by extraterrestrials. According to the reports, de Wilde claimed that a cigar-shaped UFO landed near his garden, and 2 small creatures in spacesuits resembling dive costumes emerged. The UFO shot a beam of light that paralyzed de Wilde, and by the time he was recovered, the aliens are already getting ready to leave. Despite an investigation by the authorities that found unusual marks on the railway tracks, there was no concrete evidence of an alien encounter. The stories of de Wilde's experience with the extraterrestrials quickly was widespread and reached the wine-producing village of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, located hundreds of miles from Quaraubo. The local mayor and town council were keen to protect their citizens and vineyards from potential alien invaders, and as a result, they passed a municipal decree that banned all UFOs from landing, taking off, or flying over the community. Which is definitely strange, but I guess the UFOs listened, because ever since they made this decree, they haven't seen one since. Number 1, the ghost of Pont-Marie. The City of Love is also the city of spine-chilling ghost stories, one of which stems from the era of France during World War II. This period saw the division of France into 2 parts, one directly occupied by the Germans and the other being a puppet state by them. However, amidst the hardship and turmoil, a brave woman rose to the occasion and joined the French resistance. This Parisian lady was married to a resistance fighter and was tasked with collecting information from an SS officer, with whom she started an affair. One fateful winter night, she was scheduled to meet her husband on Pont-Marie Bridge, which spans across the River Seine, but he ended up never arriving. Understanding that something was amiss, the woman wept, waiting through the nights until she eventually froze to death. Ever since, reports have surfaced of her ghost appearing on cold nights on this bridge, still crying and waiting for her husband to show up. At number 10 spot, we have the Taunton State Hospital. The Taunton State Hospital is a notorious psychiatric hospital located in Taunton, Massachusetts. The hospital opened its doors in 1854, and over the years, it bore witness to hundreds of psychiatric patients, including a couple of notorious serial killers, and unfortunately, many of these people would lose their lives in this hospital. Sadly, innocent people such as veterans, those with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Tourette's, and even women experiencing anxiety, depression, and fatigue were admitted to this hospital, and conditions were far from good for treating them. The hospital used pseudosciences like phrenology to cure patients, but that was the lightest thing done here. They also use solitary confinement, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies as common practices. Today, Taunton State Hospital and its surrounding grounds are on the Registry of Historic Places, and even though most of the historic buildings have been demolished or destroyed by a fire, there are rumors that a notorious satanic cult operated the hospital and even conducted dark rituals and even human sacrifices in the basement of the place. The hospital is considered to be one of the most haunted asylums in America, with strange and unexplained markings on the walls of the basements, and with ghostly screams, cries for help, and sobbing being commonly reported on the hospital grounds and even the surrounding woods. The entire campus is deemed haunted and is referred to as the most haunted asylum. At our number 9 spot, we have the Severals Hospital. The Severals Hospital in Colchester, Essex, England has nothing special about it other than a history of pure tragedy. Built in 1913, the hospital was designed by architects Frank Whitmore and William Town, and was initially opened as a second Essex County asylum. However, this beautiful building soon witnessed the horrors of war when it was bombed by the Luftwaffe in 1942, resulting in the deaths of 38 patients. Then in the 1950s, psychiatrists carried out inhumane experiments on the patients that were at the hospital. These were often done on people who were mainly healthy, they were admitted by their own families or friends for non-medical reasons. Electroconvulsive therapy and frontal lobotomies were carried out here as well, and women were subjected to these treatments simply because they're unable to carry out daily tasks, resulting in them being considered insane. Then in the early 1980s, the hospital went into a state of decline and was eventually closed in 1997. Despite plans to redevelop the area into residential homes, most people are so hesitant to live in a place where so much tragedy has occurred, and I can't blame them. The building has now fallen into a state of disrepair, with vines climbing its walls and an eerie feeling of abandonment. Urban explorers visiting the site have reported hearing the screams of a woman and encountering full-bodied apparitions and even brightly colored orbs. These hauntings serve as a reminder of the terror and trauma that took place here, reminding us that people who treated mental health back in the past didn't know what they were doing. All the way at our number 8 spot, we have the Danvers State Hospital. The Danvers State Hospital, also known as the Danvers State Lunatic Asylum, is a historically significant mental health institution located in rural Massachusetts, but it's also considered by many to be the most haunted hospital in the entire US. At its height, the hospital was overcrowded and used inhumane treatments such as shock therapy, lobotomies, and straitjackets to control its population. Then in 2007, a large fire destroyed much of the remaining building, leaving only the brick shell standing. The land that Danvers was built on also has a dark history to it, as it once was home to John Hathorne, the judge who presided over the Salem witch trials himself. But back to the hospital. It saw abuse, neglect, and trauma over its lifetime, which led to more overcrowding issues and more inhumane treatment of its patients. And this is probably the reason why every visitor comes out of this place with a ghostly story of their own. Visitors to the property report paranormal activity and mention apparitions, disembodied voices, and strange myths that seem to appear from nowhere. The 2 cemeteries on the property, filled with 770 bodies, are also hotbeds of ghostly activity, as you would already guess. Whether it's the day spirits of the lobotomy patients or something else entirely, the Danvers State Hospital is sure to send shivers down the spines of even the bravest of paranormal enthusiasts. On to number 7 spot, we have the Royal Hope Hospital. The Royal Hope Hospital in St. Augustine, Florida is one of the oldest hospitals in the state, with roots dating back to the late 1700s. So you know what that means? It was used during the Civil War as well. It was serving as a military hospital and treated thousands of wounded soldiers. The modern hospital was rebuilt on the same ground as the original structure, which some believe could explain the numerous ghostly encounters reported by guests and staff members over the years. One of the most notable haunted areas of the hospital is the mourning room, where family members would gather to remember their loved ones. This room is said to be filled with the hospital's priest tools for blessing the dead and is known for its ghostly voices, which can be heard praying, sobbing, and moaning. Another haunted area is the surgeon's office, where a spirit is said to grab onto visitors' clothes and refuse to let go. In the ward, beds are reported to move on their own and hit visitors, while the apothecary is known for its shadows darting from wall to wall and the sound of a sobbing spirit in the room. Other ghostly occurrences at the Royal Hope Hospital include full-blown apparitions, voice recordings from paranormal enthusiasts, moving objects, unexplained bruises, and orbs that follow visitors all around the hospital. There's also been reports of unexplained marching sounds down the hospital hallways, which may be residual from its time as a military hospital. Overall, the Royal Hospital is a prime example of how the intense emotions and suffering of the past can leave a lasting imprint on a location and contribute to its haunted reputation. So definitely go check this place out if you have nothing better to do. Number 6, the Sunland Hospital. The Sunland Mental Hospital was once a chain of hospitals all across Florida, which established in the 1950s to isolate and cure for patients with tuberculosis. But as tuberculosis became less of a public health issue, the state converted the facilities into mental health institutions, and this is when the hospitals went from good to bad. Among those hospitals, Sunland Hospital Orlando was especially notorious for its horrid conditions and maltreatment of its patients, which even escalated to outright physical abuse and torture. By the 1980s, the world knew about the horrible conditions, and Sunland Orlando was eventually closed and left to decay. The abandoned building quickly became a meta for ghost hunters, as visitors reported hearing screams and seeing shadows everywhere they went, many of which seemed to originate from children. Even in 1997, a man even plunged to his death in an elevator shaft while exploring the hospital with his friends, and many people believe that the ghost tempted him to do this in the first place. The main building was eventually demolished in 1999, but the administration building still stands to this day, attracting ghost hunters all around the world. The former site of the actual Sunland Hospital is now a children's playground, and nighttime visitors have reported seeing ghostly apparitions of children near the area and swings moving on their own, which is presumably by the children themselves. So just another unsettling reason not to visit Florida. In the hub for our list, we have the St. Thomas Psychiatric Hospital. The St. Thomas Psychiatric Hospital opened in 1939 and served over 1,700 patients. The institution was then abandoned in the summer of 2013, and a new mental health facility was developed soon after to replace it. In the time the facility was active, it housed a few notorious patients who committed violent deeds, including impaling, strangling, and torturing other patients or co-workers. People claim to hear random sounds, which include banging, crying, and even whispering, and seeing flickering lights and moving objects during their visit. Today there is heightened security at the site, but it may be possible to have a short wander across the grounds where the old hospital once stood during daylight hours. But I recommend not going there just in case, because this place looks pretty bad. All the way down at our number 4 spot, we have the Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. The Trenton Psychiatric Hospital, originally named the New Jersey State Lunatic Asylum, has a long history of helping mentally ill patients and even harming them. The hospital opened in 1849 and welcomed 86 patients initially. The first superintendent, Horace Butolph, was a good man and provided excellent care for the people around him. Then it took a turn for the worse when Dr. Henry Cotton took over. The doctor believed he could cure mental illness by removing organs. He believed that infections caused mental illness, so he tested it by removing his patients' teeth, limbs, or any body part with slight signs of infection. This would cause dozens of patients to pass away, and many claim that you can still hear the screams of these patients inside of the walls of the hospital to this day. Others even claim to see the apparition of Dr. Cotton himself and other ghosts with missing limbs. Unfortunately, after his passing in 1933, a review found his medical procedures caused 45% of his patients to perish. The irony was, the doctor was clinically insane as well. Number 3, the Old Tuawa Hospital. The Old Tuawa Hospital in Utah was originally built as a private residence by Samuel F. Lee in 1873, but it was later converted into a poorhouse for the elderly in 1913. Then we fast forward to 1953 and the new Tuawa Hospital was constructed and the original building was torn down. And this is when the haunting originated. The new hospital served as both a public hospital and an elderly care facility until it was converted into the popular tourist attraction Asylum 49. The new Tuawa Hospital was plagued by funding issues, with bodies of the deceased being stored in unrefrigerated rooms until the county coroner arrived to sign their death certificates. Asylum 49 is now a popular haunted attraction for many paranormal enthusiasts, with many reports of strange occurrences from visitors and employees, and one of the most commonly reported ghosts here is a patient named Wes, who suffered from Alzheimer's and died in a confused and scared state. Another ghost, Samuel F. Lee, the one who used to own the place, is said to roam the halls as well, telling visitors of his good deeds and seeking recognition for them. A nurse in white named Maria is also said to guard a spirit portal that directs the deceased to the afterlife. Number 2, the Clark Air Base Hospital. This is one of the few places deemed to be haunted not just in the Philippines, but in the whole world by Ghost Hunters International. Season 1, episode 20, named Unknown Soldiers, if you guys want to check out the episode. The hospital was used during World War II and the Vietnam War, so you already know this has all sorts of death and all sorts of tragedy. It served as an asylum to the wounded and dying American soldiers. This is why people around the world claim it is the most haunted place in the Philippines. It's said that the traumas and countless deaths from those conflicts have left their mark on the spirit's presence in the hospital. The place is currently abandoned, which gives it more of a supernatural look to it, but it's said that if you visit the hospital and sleep within 8 hours after the visit, you will experience extreme nightmares and intense lucid dreaming for a week, and some people don't even get out of this. Number 1, the Linda Vista Hospital. Here's a hospital on this list that's actually still open and operating. The Linda Vista Hospital, located in Los Angeles, California, is a medical center that has a long and storied history. Originally built as a Santa Fe Coastlines Hospital in 1905, the hospital was designed for the employees of the Santa Fe Railroad and was one of Los Angeles' oldest medical facilities. Over the years, the hospital saw a decline in funding and patients and eventually ceased all operations in 1991. In the years following its closure, the hospital gained a reputation for being extremely haunted. With stories of shadows walking around, nighttime cries, and disembodied humming, many people believe the hospital to be haunted by the spirits of its former patients and staff. There's also been allegations of patient abuse here that have never been fully investigated, and to this day, we'll never know, because all the past documents in this place have either been destroyed or have gone missing. Today, the former hospital is actually a senior living facility and is now not open to visitors for obvious reasons. But still, many ghost hunters still request, and some have been lucky to investigate this haunting place at night and have reported all sorts of activity. Coming in at our number 10 spot, we have the mutated pig. Spider pig, anyone? No? No? Okay. What you are seeing is a mutated piglet that was born near the site of the original explosion. This piglet suffered from dipigus, which is a congenital deformity where the body axis forks left and right partway along the torso, with the posterior end, which is the pelvis and legs, duplicated. And if you double back on this photo, it kind of looks straight out of a scene from a horror movie. Kinda like The Thing. At a number 9 spot, we have radioactive spiders. Spiders have been the subject of many people's fears for many years, but recent developments in Chernobyl have added a whole new layer of terror to their existence. These spiders are living in the exclusion zone, which is the area surrounding the site of the infamous nuclear disaster. The spiders that inhabit this area are not only radioactives themselves, but also began to spin webs that are radioactive too. This development is straight out of a comic book. The radioactive spiders and their webs are dangerous to other animals that are not radioactive. This means that non-radioactive animals that come into contact with them could suffer from radiation poisoning. Even humans who venture into the exclusion zone need to be careful, as they could easily walk into these webs and be exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. These spiders have also developed new ways of weaving their webs, which suggests that they have undergone some sort of genetic mutation due to the radiation. This mutation could have significant implications for the ecosystem of this exclusion zone and also beyond. And it's just crazy to think that just by walking through a cobweb, it could make you suffer from radiation poisoning. Crazy. At a number 8 spot, we have the Blackbird of Chernobyl. In the days leading up to the Chernobyl disaster, several workers in the control room of the nuclear power plant claimed to have seen a terrifying creature in the sky. The creature was described as a hideous humanoid with giant wings, a black headless body, and red glowing eyes. It was said to be a bringer of doom, sending a message of imminent disaster to all who gaze upon it. Ever since, it's been known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl. Sydney archaeologist Robert Maxwell claims that the legend of the Blackbird is more than just a spooky story. Maxwell is the only archaeologist to have ever worked at Chernobyl, completing 2 field excursions at the exclusion zone both in 2010 and 2012. He is very passionate about the place in both a historical and archaeological sense, and there's little he doesn't know about Chernobyl on matters of both physical and supernatural. Maxwell told news.com.au that the legend of the Blackbird of Chernobyl was something he had heard about when he was in the exclusion zone. He said that the legend states that in the days leading up to the disaster, a supernatural creature was sighted in the sky over Chernobyl by many of the men in the control room. They also claimed to have seen this terrifying creature just before the explosion. This is what made many believe this mutated bird or man was a messenger of danger. So basically, if you see it, something bad is bound to happen. Kind of like the Mothman. At a number 7 spot, we have the cows. Around the area of Chernobyl, agriculture was once a primary source of income before the disaster. And after the disaster, these animals were exposed to high levels of radiation. More specifically, the cows. Many farmers took their cows with them when they evacuated the area, but the radiation had already affected them. The newer generation saw much more of the effects of radiation. In 1989, farmers began reporting birth defects in their animals, and as time went on, the cows became less mutated. However, the effects did not go away completely. Cows began to graze on contaminated feed, leading to more internal effects. Even completely normal looking cows near the exclusion zone started producing milk that was both toxic and unfit for consumption. This is just one of the clear examples of how, even though the visible effects of radiation exposure may have worn off, there are still lasting effects that we had not previously considered. And to make matters worse, this didn't only affect the surrounding area. The Mexican government stated in January 1988 that they destroyed 41 tons of imported powdered milk because it was reportedly contaminated with radiation from the nuclear disaster. More specifically, the milk is contaminated with cesium-137 and strontium-90, which cause a syndrome that destroys cell membranes. And all I can say is, I'll be taking a small hiatus off milk for a bit. At a number 6 spot, we have chickens. Scientists have reported the presence of mutated chickens with deformed beaks and an extra set of legs in areas surrounding the nuclear power plant. These chickens almost look unreal and doesn't resemble their species at all. Experts believe that the mutations in chickens are a result of radiation exposure, with the birds being particularly susceptible to genetic damage due to their fast reproductive cycle. It is advised as well that humans should avoid consuming these chickens as they may cause health issues. I thought that was a given. Although these deformities may seem alarming, it's important to note that not all mutations are harmful, and some may even be advantageous in certain environments. In the hump rare list, we have wild boars. 30 years after the nuclear disaster, radiation is still causing so many concerns in unsuspected places. One such place is the mountains of Czech Republic, where wild boars are becoming eradicated from eating wild mushrooms during the winter months. The radioactive metal cesium-137 was spewed in the atmosphere during the 1986 disaster and was blown almost 1,000 miles away to the Czech Republic. Mushrooms in the region absorb this radiation, and when wild boars consume them, the radiation travels up the food chain. The contaminated boars are not safe for human consumption, which is a problem in a country where boar meat is commonly used in stews and goulash. Cesium-137 is not safe for human consumption as it spreads radioactive atoms throughout the body, increasing the risk of cancer. While a low dose of cesium-137 is unlikely to cause harm, consuming it multiple times a week for several months may lead to some health issues. Food inspectors in the Czech Republic screen wild meat before it goes to the market, and from 2014 to 2016, almost half of the 614 pigs inspected were too radioactive to eat. But if you visit the Czech Republic now and consume wild boar, you should be safe, as hazardous meat is banned from use. It is essential to note that the contamination is not turning the boars into mutant animals, but it is a warning sign that radiation from the Chernobyl disaster continues to have consequences more than 3 decades later. At our number 4 spot, we have firebugs. In 2011, 2 friends stumbled upon a group of tiny but deadly creatures while out collecting flowers in the exclusion zone. These creatures, known as firebugs, are radioactive and were discovered by the friends for scientific reasons, which is to study the pollen, not to create a deadly radioactive bouquet of flowers. The friends collected hundreds of these bugs, some from areas with higher levels of radiation and some from areas with lower levels of radiation. Through their research, they found that the bugs exposed to higher levels of radiation had deformities, confirming suspicions about the negative effects of radiation on living creatures. Although these creatures may seem harmless at first, their radioactive properties make them a danger to humans. You wouldn't want these guys crawling on your skin for a number of reasons. And with their small size and deadly nature, it's really easy to see why these firebugs are a cause for concern in the Chernobyl area. And it just shows that you can't even collect flowers in this place. So best believe, avoid it completely. Number 3, the barn shallot. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster, not only were humans affected, but the entire ecosystem was thrown into chaos. Animals who lived in the exclusion zone, including those who spend most of their time in the sky, were exposed to the effects of radiation. Among those affected animals are the barn swallows, whose physical appearance has been altered by the disaster. The barn swallows of Chernobyl have suffered from severe deformities that have persisted throughout the years since the nuclear meltdown. These birds have been affected more than their land animal counterparts, and it's still unclear why. It is also uncertain if these changes will reverse back to their previous state. Currently, the swallows have severely deformed beaks, disproportionate feathers, partial albinism, and smaller brains. While some of these issues are more severe than others, they undoubtedly have a significant impact on the swallow's way of life. Despite these obstacles, the barn swallows continue to adapt as time goes by. Number 2, the Przewalski's horse. The Przewalski's horse is a wild horse originating from Mongolia and was once on the brinks of extinction due to hunting and difficulties in reproduction in captivity. Harsh winters in their natural habitat didn't make things easier for the species as well. But in the late 1990s, hope was restored for the Przewalski's horse when a group of 30 horses were released into the Ukrainian side of the exclusion zone. Amazingly, some of the original horses are still alive to this day, and camera trap images have shown young horses as well. This is a huge win for the species, as their expanding population in such a harsh environment means that they might potentially be able to return from the brink and continue as a species. Some Przewalski horses have significant deformities, but this doesn't change the fact that they're an excellent example of how successful conservation efforts can help repopulate endangered species. Number 1, the European grey wolves. In the aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, the exclusion zone surrounding the site of the accident was evacuated by humans, leaving the wildlife to thrive in radioactive environments. While some species have struggled to adapt to the aftermath of the disaster, others, such as the European grey wolf, have been thriving in this unusual environment. Despite the high levels of radiation, the grey wolf population has been able to grow, with the population of the area being 7 times higher than in comparable sites. Researchers are also still trying to figure out why this is happening, but it is clear that radiation is not affecting the wildlife's ability to reproduce, but it is causing deformities in some. As their population grows, they're beginning to travel farther and spread out, which is creating a new set of challenges, and coming into contact with radioactive wolves could result in a high dose of radiation, which is not recommended. Touching a carcass of these wolves is also really bad because if you do touch them with your bare hands, you'll probably get radiation poisoning. Coming in at our number 10 spot, we have the Goddess of Death statue. The ancient limestone statue known as the Woman from Lem, or more infamously known as the Goddess of Death, has been the subject of much speculation and superstition since its discovery in Cyprus in 1878. Dating back all the way to 3500 BC, the true purpose of the statue is shrouded in complete mystery, but it is believed to have been used as either a fertility symbol or a representation of a long-forgotten goddess. Despite its small and unassuming appearance, the statue has been linked to a series of tragic events that have befallen each of its owners throughout the years. The first recorded owner of the statue was Lord Alphonse, who lost all 7 of his family members within 6 years of acquiring this piece. The curse continued with Ivor Medici, the statue's second owner, whose entire family died within 4 years of obtaining it. Lord Thompson Noel suffered a very similar fate, losing his entire family within 4 years of possessing the statue. The final owner, Sir Alan Biverbrook, and his family also met an untimely death after acquiring the statue. In an effort to break the curse, Biverbrook's 2 surviving sons decided to donate the statue to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh. However, even the museum curator who handled the statue met an untimely end within a year of its acquisition. Today, the statue remains safely well behind a glass at the museum. At our number 9 spot, we have the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror is a very creepy mirror that has gained notoriety due to its disturbing vision it allegedly brings to those who gaze into it. It was obtained by the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult from a woman whose mother had purchased it at a psychic expo. The mirror appears to use the energy of the gazer and show them their deepest fears and nightmares, including visions of their own corpse. The mirror is best used in psychomantium, which is a setup in an enclosed area with only darkness used to communicate with spirits. Visitors to the museum have reported seeing themselves age, wink, smile, and even disappear during these sessions. The dark mirror has caused headaches, feelings of dread, and an intense electrical energy in some people as well. The previous owner of the mirror became withdrawn after trying to perfect her divination skills using the mirror and eventually kept it in a closet, saying that it was evil. Despite the negative experiences associated with the mirror, some people have been brave enough to try it for themselves, with some reporting only seeing their reflection while others see something else completely. The mirror still remains a mystery and its true powers and purpose remain unknown. At number 8 spot, we have the Bassano vase. This vase is a pretty little thing and pretty old too. Cast from silver in the 15th century and produced in a very simple design, it is one of the most mysterious and elusive haunted objects in the world. Originally, the vase was a wedding present for an Italian bride who lived in a small village in Napoli. On the woman's wedding night, she was found slowly passing away on the floor. Her hands were wrapped tightly around the silver vase, and in her dying breaths, the bride vowed to have her revenge and then passed away. Ever since, every owner of the vase has passed away tragically and in very mysterious ways. It was hidden away until it got auctioned, and upon looking inside of the vase, there was a note inside saying, quote, "Beware, this vase brings death." It was then sold 3 different times in different auctions, but every single owner would pass away. Eventually, it was buried, and now no one knows where it's located, and that's probably for the better. Others believe it was taken in by a museum, but after a number of mysterious deaths from staff members, they decided to hide it from the public's eyes. Coming in at our number 7 spot, we have the Baker's wedding dress. This dress belonged to Anna Baker, who was a part of a wealthy family located in Altoona, Pennsylvania. They would reside in what is known as the Baker Mansion in 1849, the same year Anna fell in love with a man and planned to get married. But her father Elias was like, no, that's not happening. It's believed he said no because he was a part of a different social class. He didn't want the marriage to happen so bad, he even got the man banished from the town. Anna was heartbroken as a result and just begged her dad, but her dad just kept telling her no. She then went on her way to buy her own dress, which is the one in this picture, and showed her father, and he was still very adamant on his decision. So in spite of her father, she never married even after death. Fast forward to 1922, all the members of the Baker family passed away, and the mansion had been bought by the Blair County Historical Society and then turned into a museum. In the museum, guests report seeing the glass of the dress being shaken violently, and others report seeing a woman apparition in a black dress staring into this display, and perhaps it's Anna from the grave. but I guess we'll never know. At number 6 spot, we have the Dybbuk box. In June last year, Post Malone visited the Haunted Museum in downtown Las Vegas with Zach Bagans, host of the TV show Ghost Adventures. Bagans took Malone into the most notorious room in the museum, which held the Dybbuk box, widely considered the world's most haunted object. The cabinet is haunted by a Dybbuk, which is a malicious spirit, and was first put up on sale on eBay in 2012. According to the seller's description, it was purchased from a Holocaust survivor's granddaughter who brought it in Spain after escaping the occupied Poland at the time. Manis, the buyer, found a series of strange items inside, including 2 pennies, locks of hair, a small statue engraved with the Hebrew word shalom, a golden wine goblet, a dried rosebud, and a single candle holder with octopus-shaped legs. The box passed through a few hands before the last owner consulted with rabbis on how to seal it for good. Then Post Malone was with Bagans when he decided to touch the box for the very first time, and Malone grabbed Bagans' shoulder while he was doing so. The curse was apparently transferred to Post Malone, and he experienced a series of unfortunate events. His private plane was forced to make an emergency landing after its tires blew out. 3 armed robbers targeted a home in San Fernando Valley that they believed to be his, and his Rolls Royce was involved in a serious car accident. The Dybbuk box has a long history of strange occurrences surrounding it, with previous owners experiencing horrific nightmares, strokes, and physical ailments. In the hump of our list, we have the Ring of Sylvanus. This is a cursed ring that was first owned by a Roman man named Sylvanus. This was a rather large ring with a diameter of 1 inch, so it was believed she wore this on her thumb or even over her glove. But one day, his ring was stolen from him. He believed it was taken from a man named Sinicanus, and Sylvanus then proceeded to place a curse on the guy by heading up to a temple and creating a lead plate naming it the Cursed Tablet. On this tablet, he wrote, quote, "For the god Nodin, Sylvanus has lost a ring and donated 1/2 of its worth to the Nodins. Among those named Sinicanus, permit no good health until it is returned to the temple of the Nodins." It is believed whoever owns the ring will fall ill, get into accidents, or have things happen to them which will lead them to everlasting suffering. And fun fact, this is the same ring that inspired Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, so it kind of makes sense. In 1785, it was found on a random farm, but now it is placed in good hands in a museum that is not known, which is probably for the better since no one will be ever to place this curse on their finger ever again. At a number 4 spot, we have the Busby stoop chair. In 1702, Thomas Busby was convicted of murdering his own stepfather. Story goes that on his way to his execution, he requested one final thing. This request would be simply to have one last drink in his favorite pub. Nothing harmful, right? So the judge decided to let him do it. After permission was granted, he decided to have a beer in his favorite chair at the bar. Here is where it gets kind of worse. After finishing his drink, he said aloud, quote, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." He was then escorted to his execution, and his body would be displayed right outside of the inn for all to see. Over the years, death struck many who sat in the chair, leading the landlord to donate it to the Thirst Museum in England. Locals claim that during the Second World War, Canadian airmen from the nearby base at Skipton-on-Swale went to the pub, and those who sat in this chair never returned home from their bombing missions over mainland Europe. To avoid anyone sitting on it, they suspended it 5 feet in the air to stop any future tragedy. Regardless, this chair looks super uncomfortable, so I wouldn't even know if I want to sit on it, cursed or not. At a number 3 spot, we have the Okiku doll. Let me start this off by saying that this haunted doll is worse than Chucky. The story starts in 1918 Japan. Older brother Aikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his 2-year-old daughter Okiku. The doll had a black bob cut and a traditional kimono. His sister loved the doll so much that she even named it after her own name. These two would become so attached like no other. But in the following year, Okiku became gravely ill and ended up passing away. To commemorate her, her family put her favorite doll on her memorial shrine. Everything seemed fine until after a few days they would begin to notice something very strange. The doll's hair seemed to be actively growing, and every time it was cut, it would just keep on growing until it just reached just above her knees, which actually happened to be the place where the human Okiku's hair stopped. Eventually her family would move away, but choose to keep the doll in the same place, thinking that Okiku would have wanted that. Now it resides in the Menenji temple, where it's said that monks will cut the hair regularly as it keeps on growing. At number 2 spot, we have Annabelle. I know you heard this one, but it's too good of a cursed object to leave out of this list. For all who don't know, the doll's name Annabelle comes from the alleged spirit who possesses it. In the early 1970s, a young college student named Donna gave the doll to Ed and Lorraine Warren, a now famous pair of paranormal investigators. Originally, Donna received the doll as a gift from her mother, who purchased it in an antique shop. Over time, Donna and her roommate noticed that the doll had a tendency to move, be it from locations throughout the apartment or positions upright, legs crossed, etc. After more paranormal activity, the girls contacted the Warrens, who decided the doll contained a demon straight from hell. When an exorcism failed to do the trick, the Warrens agreed to move the doll to a secure location inside of a glass box at their museum in Connecticut. Unfortunately, their museum has been since closed down and only a small select few can still visit. So best believe this museum is locking away all these evil objects contained in the building now, and probably for very good reason. Coming in at our number 1 spot, we have the Terracotta Army. This is a one-of-a-kind 2200-year-old funerary art. The Terracotta Army is considered the most priceless archaeological discovery of modern times. However, for those 7 farmers who discovered it back in 1974, the warriors have been proved more of a curse than a blessing. Soon after the discovery, their farmlands were claimed by the government and their homes were demolished to make way for exhibition halls and various gift shops. Upon the 7, one took their own life while the other ones passed away tragically, since they couldn't afford healthcare. Some have blamed the government for their passing, while others believe this is a similar curse to Tut's tomb. But what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below.
Number 10, the Ariel Castro kidnappings. Between 2002 and 2004, Ariel Castro kidnapped Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Georgia Gina DeJesus from the streets of Cleveland. Upon being kidnapped, Castro took Michelle Knight to the upper floor of his house, tied her hands and feet together, and pulled her up using her hands, feet, and neck. He left her there for 3 days without food. Prosecutors at Castro's sentencing wrote that diaries kept by his victims speak of forced intimate conduct, of being locked in a dark room, of anticipating the next session of abuse, of the dreams of someday escaping and being reunited with family, of being chained to a wall, of being held like a prisoner of war, of missing the lives they once enjoyed, of emotional abuse, of his threats to end, of being treated like an animal, of continuous abuse, and of desiring freedom. The women were kept in locked bedrooms, where they were forced to use plastic toilets that were emptied infrequently. They were fed 1 meal a day and allowed to shower twice a week at most. According to a statement from the CDP, officers visited Castro's home only once following the kidnappings to discuss an unrelated incident. Castro did not appear to be home at the time and was interviewed later somewhere else. Neighbors claim to have called the police about suspicious activity observed at the home, but police have said they have no record of any such calls. Castro's son Anthony reported that there were certain areas of the house that were locked and inaccessible. He also mentioned an occasion 3 weeks before the women's escape when Castro asked him if Berry would ever be found. Anthony said that he told Castro that Berry had likely passed away, to which Castro responded, "Really? You think so?" Number 9, the Nobuyuki Sato kidnapping. Fusako Sano disappeared on November 13, 1990, after watching a school baseball game in her hometown of Sanjo, Niigata Prefecture, Japan. Police even considered the possibility that she had been kidnapped by North Korean intelligence operatives. She'd been kidnapped by Nobuyuki Sato, then a 28-year-old mentally disturbed, unemployed Japanese man who forced her into his car and subsequently held her in the upstairs floor of his apartment in a residential area of Kashiwazaki, Niigata Prefecture, for 9 years and 2 months. The house is only 200 meters from a koban, police substation, and 55 kilometers from the location where she was kidnapped. While Sano was initially scared, according to her own statements, she eventually just gave up and accepted her fate. Allegedly, Sato kept her tied up for several months and used a stun gun for punishments if she did not videotape horse races on television. Sano was also threatened with a knife and beatings. Her kidnapper shared his men's clothes with her and gave her food 3 times per day, either instant food or meals cooked by his mother, who lived downstairs in the house. He also cut Sano's hair, since there was no bath or toilet upstairs where Sano was confined. She was only able to take a bath infrequently when permitted by her captor. She spent most of her time in captivity listening to the radio and reportedly was allowed to watch TV only in the last year of her ordeal. While the door was never locked, Sano did not take a step outside for 9 years. She later told the police, "I was too scared to escape and eventually lost the energy to escape." Sato's mother lived downstairs and apparently had no contact with her son's captive since he became very violent whenever she tried to go upstairs. However, police believe the mother must have had some knowledge of Sano's presence. For example, it was alleged that she purchased feminine hygiene products for the victim. Number 8, 24 years underground. In the rural town of Amstetten, Austria, 18-year-old Elisabeth Fritzl was reported missing by her father Joseph Fritzl in 1984. But she wasn't missing. Her father, who had been sharing her since she was 11 years old, had lured her into the cellar and locked her in. He forced her to write a runaway letter which he showed to her mother and police to convince everyone she was gone. Since she was 18 and the letter said not to look for her and that she had joined a cult, there wasn't really much police could do. Fritzl kept his daughter in a windowless, completely soundproof prison beneath the home that was only accessible from a small door hidden in a cabinet. To make matters worse, his wife, Elizabeth's mother, was clueless about all of it. Doctors sent out a public plea asking for Elizabeth, still believed to be off wandering and maybe in a cult, to come forward so that she could take her daughter's medical history. Fritzl brought his daughter to the hospital, claiming she had just showed up on his doorstep in response to the public plea. Number 7. Sylvia Likens. Gertrude Baniszewski was paid to care for sisters Sylvia and Jenny Likens while their parents were traveling as carnival workers. The Baniszewski family physically and verbally abused until the focus shifted solely to Sylvia. Sylvia was kept locked in the basement, eating only scraps. Everyone was told that she had been run off with some men. Baniszewski even forced Sylvia to write a letter to her parents confirming these lies. In October 1965, Sylvia Likens passed in the basement. Her official cause of demise was brain hemorrhaging. After finding her victim gone, Baniszewski concocted a story for the police claiming that Sylvia had been attacked by a group of young men. However, when the police came to investigate, Jenny took this opportunity to say, "Get me out of here, I'll tell you everything." Gertrude Baniszewski and her daughter were both sentenced to life in prison. Richard Hobbs, Coy Hubbard, and John Baniszewski Jr. were sentenced from 2 to 21 years in prison for the roles they played in the abuse. Number 6. Sean Hornbeck. Sean Hornbeck was kidnapped while riding his bike to a friend's house near Richwoods, Missouri. Sean had taken this path many times before, but this time Sean passed by Mike Devlin, who bumped him with his truck. Devlin initially seemed concerned for Sean's safety, but moments later put him into the back of the truck and told him, "You were just at the wrong place at the wrong time." Sean's parents, Pam Akers and stepfather Craig Akers, focused all of their time looking for their son. Both Sean's mother and stepfather spent all of their money and retirement savings looking for Sean and paying investigators to help aid the police. Sean would remain missing for 4 years. Devlin decided to kidnap Ben Ownby on January 8, 2007. This time, a neighbor saw Devlin's truck and knew something was wrong when she saw Ben crying and the truck peeling out from the bus stop. The neighbor was able to give the police a description of the white truck, and the FBI was able to link the truck to Devlin relatively quickly. When the FBI came to Devlin's house to question him about the kidnapping, Devlin seemed distant and nervous and kept referring to his godson named Sean that he had to return to. The FBI quickly realized that the Sean that Devlin was referring to was Sean Hornbeck. Devlin pled guilty to all counts and was sentenced to 72 life terms. Number 5. Colleen Stan. Colleen Stan was hitchhiking when 23-year-old Cameron Hooker and his 19-year-old wife Janice picked her up, drove her to a secluded wooded area, and pulled out a knife. Hooker forced Colleen to wear a blindfold and gag, and then he strapped a 20-pound wooden box around her head. The next time the car stopped, they were at the home where Colleen would remain a prisoner for the next 7 years. Cameron would place her in a small coffin-like box at bedtime and slide her underneath his bed. Colleen was brainwashed into believing Hooker was a part of some larger organization called The Company, and if she tried to escape, The Company would get her. For most of her captivity, Colleen spent her time in that box under the bed. This was continued until Janice decided she wanted to get her husband help, so she helped Colleen escape. Cameron was found guilty and was sentenced to 104 years in prison. Number 4. Sabine Dardenne. Mark Dutroux and his wife Michelle Martin may have seemed like a normal couple to their neighbors, but little did anyone know, the couple was keeping a girl captive in their home, and Dutroux was a serial ender Belgian authorities had been looking for. Dutroux snatched Sabine when she was out on a bike ride and locked her up in the basement. She was abused repeatedly for the 80 days she spent chained up in his home. It was after he kidnapped Letitia Delhez that he was placed at the scene because his car was recognized. Police never got a confession out of Dutroux, but they had enough evidence to give him life in prison. His wife and accomplice Michelle Martin was sentenced to 30 years in prison. She only served 16 years before being released. Number 3. Natasha Kampusch. In 1998, Natasha Kampusch was dragged into a van and her whereabouts wouldn't be known for 8 years. Wolfgang Priklopil kidnapped Natasha. Natasha was forced to cater to all Priklopil's OCD-driven whims. If she did so much as leave a fingerprint behind, he would beat her. He didn't want her leaving straight hairs around, so he made her wear a plastic bag over her hair, and then he eventually shaved all her hair off. One day, and while he turned his back to take a call, she made a break for it. She ran as fast as she could to get someone to call the police. She was finally rescued. Prickly Peel ended his own life before he could be apprehended by jumping in front of a train. Number 2, J.C. Duggard. It would seem the people living near registered offender Philip Garrido weren't aware of his criminal history, and their mother was J.C. Duggard, when Garrido shocked her with a stun gun and kidnapped her in 1991. He locked her up in his home and then began abusing her, impregnating her twice. It was Garrido's wife Nancy who had actually chosen J.C. J.C. was locked in a tiny soundproof storage unit, then eventually moved to a bigger one where she remained handcuffed to the bed. J.C. wasn't served a warm meal until her first pregnancy. By the time J.C. was allowed out of the house, she was going by the name Alyssa and didn't want to admit to what had been happening to her. She was suffering from severe Stockholm Syndrome and tried to cover for Garrido. On August 26, 2009, when the Garridos went to a parole meeting, they broke Garrido and he confessed to everything. JC was able to return home and the Garridos were charged with 29 felony counts, including kidnapping, abuse, and false imprisonment. Nancy was sentenced to 34 years to life and Philip was sentenced to 431 years in prison. Thankfully, JC and her daughters were able to heal, move on, and create fulfilling lives. Number 1, 30 years of forced labor. A 73-year-old British man, Aravindan Balakrishnan, and his wife, 67-year-old Chanda Patni, kept 3 women as slaves in their home for 30 years. The 3 women, Aisha Wahab, Josephine Haraville, and Rosie Davies, were finally freed when police were given the address and showed up to the eerily normal-looking home in a neighborhood just like any other on October 25th, 2013. It was the last place anyone expected to find 3 terrified and brainwashed women being held against their will for most of their lives. The women were all so badly emotionally and physically abused that they wouldn't even try escaping. Balakrishnan was the former leader of the Workers' Institute of Marxism-Leninism Mao Zedong thought. This was where he and 2 of the women met and where the brainwashing began. Rose, the youngest, allegedly fell out of a window in a commune with the people who became her daughter's captors. An organization called the Freedom Charity was responsible for tipping off the police to the situation. They had received a call on October 18th from a woman who said she'd been held against her will for over 30 years and that there were 2 other women trapped with her.
At our number 10 spot, we have the Crown's Casino morgue. There's been rumors circulating online about the existence of a morgue under or within the Crown's Casino in Melbourne, Australia. The rumor suggests that there is a secret corridor with walls that open up into the toilets, which are used to take away bodies of people who just have taken their life at the casino, which is supposedly a very high number, unfortunately. Some reports even suggest there are specific bathroom stalls designed for quick body disposal, but that's not confirmed. Although there is no concrete evidence to support these rumors, the stories keep on persisting and continue to intrigue everyone that come across this casino. Some websites even claim that the last stall in each bathroom is always occupied because it's connected to hallways to get people out who take their lives in the bathrooms. The reason for this high number is because many people believe that the Crown's Casino is a place of broken dreams and despair, where people are prone to suicidal thoughts as they gamble their life away. However, the actual number of people taking their lives at this casino is unclear, with reports ranging from 3 per year to as many as 30 or 40. Despite all these rumors as well, the casino denies the existence of a morgue on its premises. But some people believe that the Crown would want to keep any people taking their lives under wraps to avoid any tarnishing of its image, and that would kind of make sense. At a number 9 spot, we have the Princess Theatre. The Princess Theatre in Victoria, Melbourne, Australia is a historic landmark that has been in operation since 1857. Despite its beauty, the theatre is also known for its ghostly inhabitant, Frederick Baker. Baker was an actor who tragically died during a performance of Frost in 1888. According to reports, Baker was overwhelmed by the play and suffered a heart attack as he was lowered down through the stage via a trapdoor into the basement below the stage. Ever since then, Baker's ghosts have been reportedly seen in this theater, especially when a play is taking place. He has also been spotted in the dressing rooms wearing more than one outfit and staring at the stage as if he's about to perform himself. The Princess Theatre has a rich history that began in 1854 when it was built by Charles Copin, who owned 2 theaters in Melbourne. The Princess Theatre was proclaimed to be equal to the Paris Opera in France, and now today, the Princess Theatre is owned by David Mariner and was the first place in Australia where the play The Phantom of the Opera was shown. It became so successful that it is now the longest running play ever shown in Victoria, and despite its success and popularity, the theater's haunted history continues to draw visitors and ghost hunters alike. At a number 8 spot, we have the Guyra incident. Guyra is a rural township in northern New South Wales, Australia, perched high on a volcanic uplift of the northern tablelands. It is known for being one of the highest places in Australia and one of the coldest. But on December 8th, 1999, a mysterious object fell from the sky and smashed into the local water dam, creating a crater and flattening an area of reeds in a semicircular pattern. Locals have been calling in actual sightings of a green light that had caused a loud boom about 30 seconds after being sighted. Space agencies, meteorological experts, and authorities have no record of a meteorite or space junk coming from down in the area at the time. Despite normal radiation levels, the water supply was cut while divers searched for this object. The incident hit the news in a major way, featuring prominently on all major TV networks, radio stations, and newspapers. It caused hysteria in the small town, with rumors circulating that a UFO had crashed at the dam. Theories ranged from a meteorite or space junk all the way to aliens. Police divers even discovered a subterranean cavern or tunnel which was suspected to have been caused by the object drilling down into the ground. However, the object could not be located and was speculated to have buried itself about 13 feet down into the soft granite of the earth. The official cause of the impact was now being seen as a meteorite, which was thought to be about the size of a grapefruit. However, there were no further efforts to retrieve it. Some people believe that officials were covering up the truth and that it was no meteorite but rather a UFO. Two researchers from Phenomena Research Australia went to investigate and found some odd details that did not fit into the meteorite theory. The object still remains a mystery to this day, and this incident is still talked about as one of the most bizarre events to occur in the small town. At our number 7 spot, we have the Westfall UFO. The Westfall UFO sighting was a mysterious event that took place on April 6, 1966 in Melbourne, Australia. A group of students and a teacher from Westfall High School reported seeing a large gray or silvery green saucer-shaped craft descending over flying the school and then suddenly disappearing behind a strand of trees. The object reappeared 20 minutes later and rapidly climbed before departing towards the northwest. Some witnesses reported seeing 5 unidentified aircraft pursuing the object. The odd thing is that the local TV station 6 claimed to have footage of the UFO, but when they went to bring it to authorities, it somehow vanished. And you know how that goes. The Australian newspaper The Age tried to explain the sighting as a weather balloon, but a subsequent check failed to find any commercial, private, or RAAF pilots who had reported anything unusual in the area at the time. Several explanations have been offered over the years, with one of the most plausible being that the object was a runaway balloon from the Hubble project, which was used to monitor radiation levels after British nuclear tests at Mar-a-Lago. At a number 6 spot, we have The Devil Among Us. In 1979, tragedy struck a family visiting Sydney's Luna Park. While waiting for a ferry at the Circular Quay, a man dressed in a satanic costume with like horned headdress and all approached them and posed for a photo with their young son. And little did they know, this would be the last photo of that boy. Because later that night, a fire broke out in a riot at Luna Park, claiming the lives of this entire family. The police found the photo of the man in the satanic costume, but were unable to identify him. The mysterious incident left room for a legend to grow, and that the devil himself was walking among the people of Sydney, bringing death to whoever he touched. The identity of the man in the satanic costume and the true cause of the fire still remain a mystery to this day. And believe me, police searched desperately in order to ask him some questions. And ever since that incident, he has been renowned as literally the devil around Australia. In the hump of our list, we have the Hawkesbury River Monster. It appears that every place has its own river or lake monsters. Sightings of the Hawkesbury River Monster, also known as the Mooney Mooney Monster, were reported all the way back since the 1800s, although Aboriginal rock art in the region describing a similar creature dates back all the way to 3,000 years ago. Most accounts refer to the sea monster as gray with a large eel-like body, elongated head, 4 flippers, and a thick tail. Allegedly, the water serpent may have been floating around Australia's shores since the Jurassic era. While modern legend hunters have yet provided evidence of the existence of Australia's own Loch Ness Monster, research has found that the creature may have been a large crocodile, catfish, or eel. And if you wish to go looking for this river monster, it's said that you can hunt it in Hawkesbury, northwest of Sydney, just in case you guys want to die. At a number 4 spot, we have the Wakehurst Parkway. A stretch of road spanning from Narrabeen in Sydney's northern beaches, the Wakehurst Parkway Parkway is well known to locals as a hotspot for paranormal activity, with many vehicle-related passings occurring around the 14.6 kilometer stretch of road. Spooky stories range from seeing strange humanoids on this roadside to unsettling urban legend of the girl Kelly. According to the legend, Kelly appears as a younger girl who either stands in the middle of the road or appears in the backseat of your car. Apparently, if you don't demand she leaves the car, the driver will crash. The road has also been associated with gruesome crimes over the years, such as in 1994 when 34-year-old Stephen Dempson was shot in the heart with a crossbow at Deep Creek Reserve on the Wakehurst Parkway. His killer dumped his body in the creek but later returned to dismember it, taking it and putting it in a freezer. 1 year later, the body of 21-year-old Francis Tizone was found just meters from the Wakehurst Parkway in French's Forest, where her body has been dumped after being strangled by her ex-boyfriend. At a number 3 spot, we have the Beechworth Lunatic Asylum. Beechworth Asylum, also known as Mayday Lunatic Asylum, operated from 1867 to 1994 in Beechworth, Victoria, Australia. Over those 128 years, over 9,000 patients died within its walls, and people claim that some still remain in it. Many see faces floating in the windows, while others see the apparitions of the people who passed there. Many have spoken of the figure of a man who appears near the cellar and then completely vanishes within a second. Matron Sharp, who spent most of her life there, has been spotted on more than one occasion appearing as a grey hooded apparition in the corner of dark rooms. Then on top of that, doors swing by themselves, and at other times, mysterious screams can be heard echoing across this place. Now, the area is used for tourism and artistic purposes nowadays, but remember, this place claimed the lives of 9,000 people. There's bound to be at least one of them there if you decide to take a visit. At a number 2 spot, we have the Altways Panther. Supposedly, there's been alleged sightings of the elusive big cat scurrying its way through the Altways Ranges, where the bush meets the beach off Victoria's Great Ocean Road. Supposed sightings of black panthers in the bush have been documented since 1830s, ranging from rumors of big cats in the bush by New Eastern migrants to sworn testimonies and videos taken in more recent years. All have given the legendary creature a similar description: a large black four-legged creature very similar to a panther. Some explanations have been historical exotic animal trades or an evolutionary trail of feral cats in the area, while others have suggested that they may have come from traveling circuses or visiting soldiers years ago. Similar sightings have been reported in other states, including the Blue Mountains. It's said that you can encounter this beast in the Great Altways National Park, almost 3 hours southwest of Melbourne, past the RACV Torquay Resort near Apollo Bay, just in case, again, if you guys want to die. All the way at our number 1 spot, we have the Picton Tunnels. The most famous of the Picton Tunnels in New South Wales, called the Mushroom Tunnel, was the first railway tunnel used by the New South Wales Railways. During World War II, the tunnel has been used to store weapons and ammo. It was also said to be a hub of paranormal activity after a lot of people taking their own lives, murder, and accidental passings happened inside of this place. Many who have been brave enough to go into this tunnel have reported strange lights, cold spots, strange voices, and dark figures. There's also whispers that a mysterious lady in white still roams the tunnel, inducing fear into anyone who's unlucky enough to see her. Is it just me, or does every place have its own lady in white? Because this is not a surprise anymore.